Welcome, discerning minds, to Alternatify, the digital crucible where history's most pivotal moments are reforged in the fires of what if. We delve into the tantalizing possibilities, the roads not taken, and the futures narrowly averted. Today we confront a chilling hypothetical, a scenario so terrifying it still sends shivers down the spine of collective memory. We journey back to October 1962, to the Cuban Missile Crisis, a mere 13 days when the world teetered on the precipice of nuclear annihilation. The Cold War was a global chess match, played with nuclear arsenals as pawns. In October 1962, US-Soviet tensions were at a fever pitch, each superpower bristling with enough destructive power to end civilization as we knew it. Then came the U-2 reconnaissance photos, undeniable proof of Soviet intermediate-range ballistic missiles being deployed in Cuba, just 90 miles from American shores. This was a direct challenge, a strategic game-changer that demanded an immediate, decisive response. President Kennedy faced an impossible dilemma. His advisors, the ExComm, debated options ranging from a full-scale invasion to surgical airstrikes, each carrying the terrifying risk of escalation. The world held its breath, unaware of the frantic, high-stakes negotiations unfolding behind closed doors. Ultimately, a fragile resolution emerged. Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba in exchange for a public US pledge not to invade the island and a secret agreement to withdraw American Jupiter missiles from Turkey. The immediate crisis was diffused, but the scars of that near miss would forever remain. Yet, the resolution was far from guaranteed. Several critical moments, often overlooked, could have easily shattered the fragile peace and plunged the world into an unimaginable nightmare. These were the true tipping points, where human judgment, or lack thereof, held the fate of billions in its hands. On October 27th, a U-2 spy plane was shot down over Cuba. Hardliners in Washington demanded immediate retaliation, but Kennedy, with remarkable restraint, chose not to escalate. His calm decision prevented a direct military response that could have spiraled out of control. Perhaps the most terrifying near miss occurred aboard the Soviet submarine B-59. Deep beneath the waves, cut off from Moscow, its captain believed war had begun. Only the steadfast refusal of Second Captain Vasily Arkhipov to authorize the launch of a nuclear torpedo prevented a catastrophic counterstrike. The naval blockade, or quarantine, around Cuba was another flashpoint. Had Soviet ships defied the American cordon, a direct confrontation would have been inevitable. The potential for a single misstep, a single shot fired, to ignite a global conflict was horrifyingly real. And let us not forget the Jupiter missiles in Turkey. The US initially refused to publicly acknowledge their removal, a point of contention that could have prolonged the crisis indefinitely. Had this secret concession not been made, Khrushchev might have felt compelled to stand firm with devastating consequences. So, what if one of these moments had gone differently? What if the dice had fallen the other way? Imagine, if you dare, the immediate aftermath of a nuclear exchange. Cities, once vibrant hubs of human endeavor, would be instantly vaporized in blinding flashes of light. The initial catastrophe would be followed by the collapse of all essential infrastructure. Power grids would fail, communication networks would cease to exist, and transportation systems would grind to a halt. Society, as we know it, would unravel in mere hours. Massive firestorms, fueled by the immense heat of the blasts, would consume everything in their path. These infernos would rage unchecked, creating their own weather systems, sucking oxygen from the air, and leaving nothing but ash and desolation. Then would come the insidious, invisible killer, radioactive fallout. Carried by winds, this deadly dust would contaminate air, water, and soil across continents, rendering vast swathes of the planet uninhabitable for generations. Survival would become a cruel, drawn-out agony. Following the initial devastation, a nuclear winter would descend. Smoke and soot from the firestorms would block out the sun, plunging the Earth into a perpetual twilight. Temperatures would plummet, crops would fail, and the very concept of seasons would become a distant memory. The ecological collapse would be profound and irreversible. Mass extinctions would occur on an unprecedented scale, wiping out countless species. The delicate balance of ecosystems would be shattered, leaving a barren, poisoned planet. In this post-apocalyptic landscape, governments would cease to function. Law and order would evaporate, replaced by a brutal struggle for survival. Humanity would regress, fighting over dwindling resources in a world stripped bare of its former glory. The consequences of such a cataclysm would ripple through every facet of human existence, altering the course of history in unimaginable ways. The very fabric of our modern world would be unstitched, leaving a patchwork of despair. Consider the space race. Without the Cold War's competitive drive, the monumental achievements of space exploration might never have occurred. Humanity's gaze, once fixed on the stars, would be tragically confined to a scarred Earth. The Internet, that ubiquitous tool of modern connection, might never have been conceived. Its origins are deeply rooted in the need for a decentralized communication network resilient to attack. Without that specific Cold War imperative, our digital world would be vastly different if it existed at all. Technological advancement in general would stagnate. The resources, the intellectual capital, and the societal stability required for innovation would be gone. Humanity would be too busy surviving to invent. The global political landscape would be unrecognizable. International bodies, already fragile, would crumble. New, brutal power dynamics would emerge, if any organized power could even exist in a world devoid of established norms. Culturally and socially, the loss would be immeasurable. Libraries burned, art destroyed, and traditions forgotten. The collective memory of humanity would be fractured, leaving survivors to forge new, harsher values in a world stripped of its heritage. Beyond the geopolitical and technological shifts, the true horror lies in the human cost. This is where the speculative becomes deeply, profoundly emotional. Millions, perhaps billions of innocent civilians would perish in the initial blasts and the agonizing aftermath. Their lives, their dreams, their futures, extinguished in an instant or slowly eroded by radiation and starvation. Families would be shattered, bonds irrevocably broken. Parents would lose children, spouses would be separated, and the very concept of kinship would be redefined by the brutal necessities of survival. The personal tragedies would be endless. Survivors, if any, would endure unimaginable psychological trauma. The constant fear, the loss of loved ones, the grotesque landscape. These would leave indelible scars on the human psyche, a legacy of suffering passed down through generations. In the desperate struggle for existence, compassion and empathy, those hallmarks of advanced civilization would diminish. The struggle for resources would breed suspicion and brutality, eroding the very values that define our humanity. Yet, from this chilling hypothetical, profound lessons emerge. The Cuban Missile Crisis, in its terrifying reality, serves as a stark reminder of the imperative of diplomacy and restraint. It was through negotiation, not aggression, that the world was saved. It underscores the critical dangers of miscalculation. Clear communication, de-escalation, and a willingness to understand the other side's perspective are not luxuries, but necessities to prevent accidental war. The stakes are simply too high for error. The crisis also highlighted the value of international cooperation, even between adversaries. The back channels, the secret agreements, and the shared understanding of mutual destruction played a crucial role in pulling humanity back from the brink. Ultimately, the Cuban Missile Crisis is a powerful testament to the fragility of peace and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. It reminds us that peace is not merely the absence of war, but a constant active pursuit, demanding vigilance, wisdom, and a profound commitment to our shared future. Let us never forget the nightmare we almost faced, and let it forever fuel our imperative for peace.